have no idea where this will lead us, but I have a definite feeling it will be a place both wonderful and strange.
Hello, and welcome to the wonderful and strange Twin Peaks Logcast. I'm Kalil, and with me today is my co-host, who never takes any oinks off any pretty pigs.
Wait, what? No. I have nothing to do with Unplugged Professor.
Thank you. So the goal of this podcast is that we're going to run through the entire series, hopefully. And I have seen this show a few times. Whereas my co-host here, would you explain in a few words your experiences of Twin Peaks thus far?
So far, my experience, it has been absolutely nothing. I have seen the first episode, and we set up the equipment now, and the Oink-Oink thing is still bothering me.
So, what we're trying to get at, both of us on the same page here, is that this is a great podcast if you've seen the show, and to listen to someone who has no clue what he's talking about guess at things. Mm-hmm. But if you, like my co-host here, have not seen it, I will avoid spoilers.
We're going to avoid spoilers?
We're going to avoid spoilers for episodes that we aren't covering right now.
Oh, neat. Okay.
So today's episode
I was about to say, I'm going to spoil the crud out of this stuff.
So today we're going to spoil the pilot. So if you clicked on this having not watched the pilot, you should go watch the pilot.
Yeah.
We're talking about the original version today, not the international. Just a heads up.
Mm-hmm. With login lady intro as well, so.
Cool. Anything else before we get started?
No, I think that I'm good to go.
So we decided to try approach where we're going to have a list of items to cover during our podcast, alternating. So we each have about 10 things written down. These are not in chronological order, just the order we want to go in.
And we may have the same thing written down, so we're going to get a good range between 10 to 20 subjects. We might have exactly the same things written down.
Perfect. Would you like to start, since you're the first person?
Yep. Abba-ba-da-ba-da.
Would you like to start, since you haven't seen the show before?
Yes, I, Sir Abada, would like to. As far as it goes, the intro sequence and the overall use of machinery, visuals, and sounds in different scenes and contexts really gripped me. That there was a sense of a nice, I would call it a visual ASMR. So would that be VSMR?
So is this just in the opening or throughout the
throughout the at least the pilot, we got a few tense moments in which it was interrupted with the sound of like clanging and saws, if you will, to just kind of shift the mood. Sometimes we saw the literal visuals of the saws going about, and just having the loud, rough sounds after a scene that was rather, well, rough is quite fitting, but it seemed quite calm and serene when we started off.
So you find sawing of logs calm and serene?
Depends on the context. If I can't hear them, and it is
the context of high school students being murdered.
You know, if you add in a little bit of lo-fi music, I'm sure that'll be rather pleasing.
Let me drop a beat over the screams of this small town.
Exactly, you get me.
Okay. So other than the saws, was there anything else that really struck you as far as this ASMR vibe you're talking about?
Again, just the continuous use of the means of machinery. I think that for obvious reasons we'll get more woodmill content.
You don't know that.
I don't know that, but as for the amount of times we've seen trees spoken about in this, I'm pretty certain.
Okay. Anything else, or are we moving on to one of mine?
Go on.
Okay, so I'll jump to one that's pretty similar to yours, just kind of a nice jumping off point. Mm-hmm. I think it's really interesting looking back on the pilot, how, in my opinion, it does it getting you into the film's or TV show's language. So this has a visual component. I wouldn't describe it as ASMR, but respectfully disagree on that. Mm-hmm. But I really do enjoy how the imagery in this film, even when it's not really explained why it's there, still conveys this overall mood and attitude for the viewer. So a couple that stood out to me, is the ceiling fan and the stairway in the Palmer house.
Yeah, I think that more so, I less like look at the ceiling fan and just more so focus on the stairway towards Laura Palmer's room.
There's two kinds of people.
Yeah.
There's stair people and there's ceiling fan people.
Yep, so as far as the stair people who are the right people, the amount of lighting that is kind of set onto that and just the overall interactions with the rooms up there really do display these sorts of moods that I feel either just is something for the audience to connect to, or more so Laura's mother as a little bit of a reflection in their household.
Yeah, but the ceiling fan whooshes. Goes like...
I'm proud.
I don't know if the mic can pick that up.
I'm proud that you could know what ceiling fans sound like, but we did not hear the whoof, whoof, woof, woof. So.
If you were really listening with your headphones in, there's that subtle sound effect.
Oh.
Another one, since there's a couple that I really liked, and then you cut me off. The second one I really liked was the traffic light that showed up a couple times at night. First, where it was green going to amber, which is the second color in the light, and then red.
Yeah, honestly, few things. One, we're in a podcast, so be prepared to be interrupted multiple times. Secondly...
We're in a podcast?
No, not whatsoever.
You're recording me?
Don't put your eyes towards the microphone. As far as lights go, it even had a nice little phrase said by Dale Cooper, right?
Sure.
Yeah, Dale Cooper. He was saying something along the lines of towards the end of the episode of whittling is for the type of people who stay in a town that yellow lights for people who slow down and not speed up. So
fair connection.
Yep, I'm looking forward to other light connections. So
yeah, how the visual language reaffirms the film's language. I keep saying film. I think of this pilot as a weird crossover because when this thing was made, they didn't know it was going to ever be a show. It could have just been a one-off thing. And I really feel like this is treated like a film by Lynch as the writer and director.
All I'm saying is that that's how pilots work. Kalil.
Yes.
You don't know if they're going to be
my name's not
Kalil.
You don't say that over the podcast.
Oh, no.
So let's undo that when we actually edit this, huh?
Let me put it in the sound. Kalil. That's not going to sound unnatural at all.
Okay. Professor. The other part of this I was going to mention with the language of the show, aside from just the visuals, the use of certain motifs throughout it, again, not even necessarily being explained at this point, but all these little references to fire or light that happen. We have the lamplighter in. We have the light my fire line that happens earlier.
Yeah, that's not going to be important whatsoever.
And then the fire walk with me slip, right?
Yeah.
So just the way in which fire keeps popping up, even though we don't have any idea how fire would be important. But I do like that that's in the background. You get a lot of stuff with fishing too. So we'll see if any fish pop up anywhere anytime soon.
No, there have been a lot of nice visual moments, if you will. I've actually been kind of obsessed with trying to focus on the colors of the phones and so on, since that was just brought up as a little fun line at the beginning of the show.
By Lucy.
Yep, by Lucy. Effectively, she's saying oh, no, grab the black phone, not the brown phone. Nowhere in the shot could I find a brown phone. So when he picks up a black phone and the other person has a brown phone on the other end, maybe Lucy has some sense of omnipotence that I have to look forward to. Okay.
This is not one of my questions, but if any of the characters have omnipotence in this show so far, or omniscience,
Dale
right?
Cooper.
You think Dale Cooper is the most?
Dale Cooper is about 5 steps ahead of everyone in all sorts of regards. It seems that not only did he get the biker track by looking at one of those little old style roundabout TVs and zooming in on the eyes to find that.
That's
nice
a classic detective method.
Classic detective method. Making sure to observe people's fingernails to find little tiny letters inside of them, specifically in this town as well. I don't know how the other individual was murdered per se, but we'll get back to that later, I'm sure. And the way he kind of carries himself, seems like a very prepared individual, and that's both good and bad in a sense of in story and out.
Okay. Do you want to go to one of yours? We could just cover one of mine, I think.
Oh, sure. We can go ahead. As far as the characters, everyone but I would say Donna and Bobby have an interesting sense of quirks.
Are you saying Donna and Bobby don't have quirks?
Donna and Bobby
Bobby, the guy who literally was barking in a jail cell?
Look, they look like they both Oh no, I'm sorry, not Bobby. Jay.
James.
James. There we go.
He's a perfectly normal man too.
Yeah. No. James, as well as Donna, just seem very normal compared to the rest of the cast.
They are normies.
They are normies, and the rest of them are easily recognized, which is another pro for the sake of this show's obvious quirks, as well as easy recognition. I can tell effectively Ed is the owner of his store, as he sort of carries himself in his monotone way, like, I'm so sorry, everything's gonna be okay. I enjoy the eye patch lady who
Nadine,
who has an obsession with drapes. The log lady who doesn't really caress or hold on dearly to her log. She
that
just
we've
kinda,
seen.
Yeah, but
We do not know the intimate moments she shares with her log.
Don't give me spoilers about the sweet scenes with that log.
Okay.
But no, she holds it eerily. We've got the nice little what's his name? The doctor. No.
Dr. Jacoby?
Dr. Jacoby. Dr. Jacobo. No. Over on how he has those little corks inside of his ears, and how he just kind of like has those little fancy ties that he enjoys feeling up, if you will.
Okay, that was one of my points on here, so I'll go ahead and remove that.
Okay. No, there's definitely a lot of. How would you describe it? Just like standout characters with strange quirks.
Well, I think what's interesting about the log lady and Jacoby in particular is that in this pilot, they don't really do anything.
No.
Like, they don't serve a narrative purpose beyond, wow, there's some weird people in this town. Even so much that when the log lady is being formally introduced in the actual episode, Truman's going through and like, oh, that's Josie Packard. This is what she does. Oh, that's Benjamin Horne. This is what he does. Mm-hmm. Who's the lady with the log? Oh, that's the log lady. And nothing more, because she's not pivotal. If this pilot hadn't, gone anywhere and Twin Peaks hadn't become a show, the log lady's print on this movie would just be that she's a lady with a log. Because the log lady intro didn't get added till later. You don't know that, but
I know.
Otherwise, you do know that. Otherwise, she really didn't do anything. And Jacoby, while definitely seeming memorable, other than just feeling up a tie and having some awkward moments, what does he do? So a lot of the more standout characters are ones that don't seem to have a lot of relevance, whereas James and Donna, I think it's safe to say, have some relevance to Laura.
Yeah.
So I don't know where to go with that. That was interesting.
That's fine.
On to one of mine?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's really weird every time I watch this that the sign says town of 51,201, because I really feel like it's a town of 5,000 people. I do not think it's that big.
Honestly, this town is going to be deceiving as far as the populace goes, because you can only see so much in certain places.
It feels to me like a town with one school. Like, it feels to me like everyone we've seen, and when we were watching, you didn't make a lot of comments because we're saving it for this, but one of the comments I remember you making was just how Laura seems to be holding everything together, because the whole thing just shuts down the moment she's gone.
Yeah, Laura's a centerpiece. I mean, the principal is just tearing up and crying over the intercom. The nearby lumber mill, since she had passed away from there, ends up getting shut down. There are many people who just kind of approach the sheriff just saying no, Laura was special. Laura was really special.
She was, you might say, the one.
You might say the one. I will say, potentially, I don't know, cult leader or something?
Okay.
No, Laura is probably one of the more fascinating mysteries, the primary fascinating mystery, I would say, through Twin Peaks, especially just how people behave around them. I think that the one that stuck out for me the most was likely Donna, because as soon as she did not notice that Laura was there and she started freaking out, she immediately grabbed at her wrists and just started rubbing at her wrists.
And then there was that crazy girl running in the outside screaming before we even found the news of what was going on.
Oh yeah, just I think that was a bit more on tone, but I don't know if we'll ever return to her or the standout character, Flip Around
Spinning Locker Man.
Spinning Locker Man.
Yeah.
But no, she was gripping at her wrists, and you'll notice that the other person who ended up being abducted was tied up by the wrists, if you will. She had either that or she had a strange fashion sense while she was walking
kids
across
these days,
bridge.
those 90s kids.
But no, it was a sense of recognizing that potentially, this might be me drawing some random lines, but just recognizing a sense of tension across the wrists. I can't imagine many cases people will be.
I think this is a good show for drawing random lines.
Yeah. I like myself some random lines.
I think we're at your turn next.
No, for sure.
Is that the Addams Family?
No, I don't. Can't we be copyright struck on a podcast?
No, not because it sounded so unlike the Addams Family. I don't think we're going to get copyright struck.
Stop saying Addams Family each time.
The Addams Family.
For the ongoing murders, I am excited to see who dies next.
Ooh.
Yeah, because
Do you have any theories of who would be the next to die if a character dies?
I think Ro's gonna be finished off.
Who?
What's her full name? I only shortened it down to Ro. She was the lady that ended up having the
Ronette Pulaski.
Ronette, yeah.
The one who's currently in the hospital.
Apparently, I know her
in sleep mode.
Apparently, I know her intimately enough to give her a nice nickname through the single pilot. But,
okay. She has a lot of memorable lines.
Mm-hmm. But Teresa Banks died and Laura Palmer died, and both of them had little inserts inside their fingernails. I think Ro's going to be finished off.
Well, Ro doesn't have one in her fingernail yet, though.
Not yet, but she didn't get finished off. Like, she escaped. Like, this might be like a post, like, I will put the letter in your fingernail after you die.
The final nail in the coffin is a letter in the finger.
Yes.
Makes
a fingernail in the coffin, if you will.
Anything else on that one?
I think we're the only one that are going to laugh on that. No. I think that unless you have more to add, I'm like... I suppose I can't ask you, like, who do you think will die first?
No,
Mr.
yeah, that's not how this is going to work. If you have, I can imagine. Okay, I can actually say something on that, though, because I remember when I first watched this, the feelings I have, and you're just going to have to trust me that I'm not spoiling anything by saying this. And if I am spoiling, it's because I got it right.
Oh, great deceiving prophet. What do you have to say?
So I felt when I was watching this that Bobby and Shelley are like the classic, like, couple that doesn't really care what they're doing, like reckless teenagers. I was like, they're just gonna get killed, because when they're shown together after the diner, like drinking while they're driving, and the police car's going the opposite direction they are. So when you go toward where a police car is coming from, that means that's like a sign of danger. And from what I experienced of Bobby up to that moment, and I think the rest of the pilot just kind of reaffirms it, Bobby is a bold person. Let's use that term, bold. I feel like he could put himself in a situation where he can get in harm's way. And I was like, Bobby, I'm not really sure you and Shelley are gonna do okay over here.
Now, as far as I can say, two things on that. One, if a police car is coming from a situation, if their lights are on, I imagine the danger is where they're going. So
that's a fair point.
I disagree with that. I think you should go away from where the police car is going.
Oh, yeah.
As far as Bobby goes, the first time I saw him, as I was taking notes, it was just like note after note after note on Bobby, which is rebellious, cheater, hotshot, drinker and driver, apparently loves Laura, and apparently, like, I don't think Bobby's a nice person. He's pretty...
You barely met the guy.
Look, he's got some fancy moves as he slams his hands down and gives out a sweet snap. He knows how to bark very nicely like an ape. But beyond that, I can't say many positive qualities about Bobby.
He truly loved Laura, and Laura truly loved him.
Oh, yeah.
Those clearly established.
Yeah, no, clearly, yeah. Especially with everything with James and the possession and the person at the diner and no contradictions.
And while he's making out with someone else. Anyway, it's just his way of showing love. You know, everyone's different.
Everyone has their love languages, and Bobby's is inside of primordial sounds.
Okay.
For the way that Laura was presented, I found it very intriguing that she was wrapped up so nicely, if you will.
In plastic.
But the thing is that the way the plastic was sort of wrapped up kind of gave off a strange presentation. Almost like a bouquet of flowers, I kind of put it down as, because it was wrapped around the legs, and it had a large little arcing triangular point.
Is there any particular flowers you would think, or just flowers in general?
Just more so presented flowers, if you will. And the thing is that I think that Laura was meant to be displayed in some manner by the killer. I don't think that this was supposed to stay hidden. I don't think you put in like the individual letter R into a fingernail unless you wanted to be presented and seen.
It's a shame then that Ro wasn't killed prior and we saw her in a giant Valentine's Day chocolate box. I don't have any more on that joke.
The joke is over.
We got one of mine?
Yeah.
Okay. One thing I was looking for when viewing this again with fresher eyes, who I think we could say safely some main characters, but I was curious if we felt that there was anyone who was kind of an audience surrogate. So in a show like this where you're introduced to this town and a large cast, abnormally large casting for a first episode. And there's this situation where a girl we don't know, we never get a chance to know, is killed, and seemingly everyone else knew her. And added on to that, there's all these weird mysteries going on. I can feel like it'd be natural to expect there to be a character we're kind of meant to view things through. And I came up with a few candidates, but I wanted to first get your thoughts. Did you feel like any of the characters were an audience surrogate?
No,
you couldn't.
No.
You didn't feel like, what? I feel you, man.
No,
I am you.
I am adamantly opposed towards the sense of an audience surrogate, because nearly every character seems to have a sense of secrecy that we are kept completely in the dark from.
Sometimes you have secrets from yourself. Like, what did I eat for breakfast this morning? I'll never find out.
Kalil. And we need to talk about your eating habits, but firsthand.
Don't call me that on the podcast.
Kalil. There, I'll replace it there.
Is this going to be a problem,
yes.
Professor?
Yes, it will. Where was I?
You were talking about...
Oh, yeah, no, like, there are, like, secrets kept from absolutely everyone. There's everyone with a sense of a strange quirk, and the only one who is, like, a new character introduced that could be a potential audience surrogate is about 10 steps ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, okay, so my first candidate, most obvious, would be Cooper, right? He is the one who is entering the town from the outside. So, yeah, I think in another show, you would be expected to put yourself in that shoes of presumably a main character from outside the town. The problem is he comes in 36 minutes too late to really do that. And he also, like you said, seems to know way more stuff than we do.
I will admit that for an audience surrogate as a candidate, I too like cherry pie, so...
Yeah, he's very... Okay, would you say... This is kind of a side note. Do you think Cooper is more relatable or less relatable?
Less. I think that he has his overall wide variety of interests that he gets, like, very obsessed with. That he can be relatable to certain sects of audiences, but I don't know to this degree. Like, he goes into deep tangents on just things that he just outright enjoys, like the means of the cherry pie and his overall meal that he will be sending to whoever is getting these tapes.
Diane.
Whoever Diane is. When he goes off, he's just so fascinated with chocolate bunnies, in which we later on hear about him talking about how he recognized a cottontail, and it was actually a snowshoe rabbit. So, theme on rabbits there.
I mean, is that not the everyman, though? Is it everyone interested in pie and trees and bunnies?
Oh, yeah, and whenever you're chasing someone that you need to adamantly catch up to as you're in an investigation, you too just stop and smell the trees.
Yeah. My next candidate for audience surrogate was going to be Pete.
Okay.
Pete Martel, because he is the first person to find Laura's body. And I think we can agree that Pete seems like a pretty normal person from all 17 lines of dialogue he's had.
Okay, I'm just checking because y'all probably learn names better as the series goes on, but Pete was the major crier man, right? Or is that Andy?
That's Andy.
Andy, yeah.
He was the guy who was out going fishing.
Oh.
And then while he's out, he finds the bouquet of Laura Palmer.
You know what? I also have a deteriorating...
Lonesome foghorn blows.
I also have a deteriorating love life myself. I too...
So he is relatable. Okay, on average, people can relate to this person.
I don't agree, but with maybe like episodes beyond this will change my mind.
But yeah, I don't think Pete's it either because he's just not there enough. Mm-hmm. I can view myself as Pete for the first 5 minutes of the movie, and then he like stands.
I too have the deteriorating relationship and walk across the beach shores to find dead bodies.
Well, because then we see Pete standing by Josie during the whole "should we shut down the mill" thing, and it's like, you know what? Maybe the audience stands by Josie, but we don't know who she is anymore, so we don't have any reference to know where we stand. So the only one, this is my final candidate, and I think this is actually, you can make an argument for this. Mm-hmm. I think you can make an argument that Truman is the closest thing we have to an audience surrogate, the sheriff.
I can agree with that.
He's the one who gets the call in the morning, and consistently he's on the side of trying to find out what's going on, but unlike Cooper, he doesn't have this vast amount of knowledge of what's going on. And when Cooper like comes in as like, the FBI has to take the case, sometimes the people don't like that, I gotta have you with me on this. And he's like, sure, man, whatever. I think that's kind of how the viewer is gonna be like, sure, man, whatever you're doing, David Lynch and company, just take us on a ride.
Yeah, effectively, he follows along with Dale Cooper and is just mainly a little bit of an exposition gnome, just kind of giving us a little bit details from people across the town. He's definitely less rebellious than the character you said before, the old man.
Yeah.
Because when he was told to push the plug, he went ahead and pulled the plug.
See, and like the only thing is that at the end, I think Truman didn't have very much of a cemented personality or characterization. He was really neutral. Until at the end when he starts making moves on Josie. So then, it comes full circle. Okay, he's another one of these soap opera characters just like everyone else. Mm-hmm. But up until that point, I would say he's pretty successful in having a consistent presence of neutrality there to be the straight man to Cooper's antics. Mm-hmm. And to explain about trees. That's mine. On to one of yours.
On to one of mine. I'm getting closer to the end of myself just because when I did go through, we kind of expanded more. So do you have a lot more sections to go over?
Yeah, I have 5 more things.
Okay.
This is a good approach.
This was a
we
good
did
approach.
It. Did you want me to go through some of mine then?
Yes, go ahead.
Let the record show we had equal numbers at the start.
We did have equal numbers.
I'm just a more original person.
It's okay. We can have 15 things.
So
16, actually, technically.
So some of them do overlap with things talked about, but not precisely. So we've talked a lot about Cooper, and I think we're going to keep talking about him. But one thing I wanted to talk about was just the way he's introduced. So, like I said before, it was like 36 minutes into the episode when we finally get Cooper, who I think we can, if there is a main character of like the 50 people we've met, I think he's a pretty close contender for the main character. He's the lead investigator in this mystery story.
He is, but again, if we are going to go along with the sense of having someone we're supposed to relate to, there's an equal chance with Truman
Correct.
as well.
The audience surrogate may or may not be the main character. But certainly Cooper's introduction is important. He's the outside element coming in. So the fact that we have a half hour of almost 100%. There are a few moments of silliness, but almost 100% just pure melodrama, right? This whole town falling apart over this girl's death. And he comes in here with this monologue to this tape recorder, and there's just this like gust of levity added into the series. And again, not that there weren't silly moments before, but they were almost like awkward silly or just a little bit like maybe cheesiness here and there. But Cooper comes in and just is an eccentric person in a way that the other people, while they're weird in Twin Peaks, aren't the same level of eccentricity.
I think that strangely enough, weirdness tends to follow Dale Cooper as he goes about.
Sure.
Say, for example, just randomly, the mount just falls off of the edge of the edge of the wall. And they have to end up putting it on the table. Okay. They go off to investigate the girl later on, and the light just goes crazy and flickers.
Do you think that's on purpose, or do you think that's coincidence?
I think it could be a little bit of both.
Okay. So do you think this town was as weird before he entered, or because we don't know, we only know that 30 minutes beforehand. Do you think that the weird things just happen in Twin Peaks like they do in the middle of nowhere with the Courage the Cowardly Dog, or do you believe that it's weird because the weird man Cooper is here?
I think that the weird elements were there, but they show themselves more brilliantly when Dale Cooper comes about.
Fair enough.
He's more so like a sense of a sweet scent to a Venus flytrap.
There was already the kaleidoscope of weird, and then he's the light shining through the kaleidoscope.
We could go through metaphors all day, but no, I think that just weird follows Dale Cooper.
Okay. And then another thing I thought was interesting was that while we get so much time learning the majority of people in Twin Peaks. Like, if a name gets referenced, we're probably going to meet them in the town. There's a few cases where that's not true, but especially up to that point, that's pretty true. We meet, like, everyone's family. Even, like, Donna's parents, and we meet, Audrey's parent, and we meet, like, everyone, right?
There's a large cast.
But with Dale Cooper, he makes, like, immediate references to Diane. We don't know. He says, make sure you get Albert on the case, not Sam. Like, all these names of people we don't know. I think it's really interesting how Dale Cooper, even though he's there to investigate a mystery, he's almost the most mysterious thing there for the viewer because he's talking about people he just knows regularly that we have no clue about. And at this point, depending on your ability to grasp names, at least with Twin Peaks, we're kind of getting to know that town. Right as we're like, yeah, I kind of get to know these people, Dale comes in with references to all these characters we don't know, which I think is interesting.
As far as it goes, Dale Cooper is probably the most mysterious, and I'd even argue the most suspicious person involved.
Ooh. Is it Dale J. Cooper?
It may very well be Dale J. Cooper.
That would explain his confidence in writing on the calculator he did not do it. I mean, if anyone would know.
I think we already covered J for the most part. I don't think that Dale Cooper is supposed to be in place of J. I think J is just clearly James, but I feel that...
Is James a head red herring then?
Yeah, I feel that James is a bit of a red herring. He may have had mild involvement, but as far as the deeper sense of these murders go, if they continue inside Twin Peaks, it just puts a bigger light on Dale Cooper, because he came from out of town after a murder happened in a different location that's connected to this case.
Okay, interesting.
Your laugh scares me.
I will not say. The next thing I had was just the way the story's being told. So obviously the main mystery for the viewers is going to be the Laura Palmer situation with Cooper and the sheriff investigating. But what Twin Peaks does consistently throughout its runtime is there's going to be parallel plot lines happening simultaneously. And in the pilot, like we've mentioned before, didn't know if it was going to get a whole series. So I think it's curious which storylines they went with, because the Bobby and Snake angle and the Donna and James angle, they kind of mesh together because they're all surrounded by Laura, her outings, and both Bobby and James's connection to her as love interests, as well as Donna's connection as a friend, and that whole weird love triangle thing happening. And then the other main plot that I detected was kind of the most separate from Laura was the Great Northern stuff with Audrey and Benjamin Horne. And we find out kind of at the end, Catherine's on the phone with Benjamin. So I think it's really interesting from the pilot standpoint. And since you really don't know where the series is going and it may or may not do something with this, do you have any thoughts on like why talk about the Great Northern with was it the Swedish? The Norwegians. The Norwegians are coming.
No, the Norwegians are
leaving.
going.
They're leaving, yes.
The British are coming, Norwegians are going.
So with all this emphasis on the Norwegians, the Great Northern, why have all of that versus everything else seems to be more directly connected to Laura?
As far as everything going on with the Norwegians and the details on the outside, I think that we're going to have just sprinkles of a bigger picture as we kind of zoom into effectively the iris of what's going on.
You're gonna pour sprinkles into somebody's eye?
Yes.
I'm just trying to... Oh, God, I'm going to drop the notebook.
No, effectively, let me see if I can clear up this metaphor a bit better. I think the Great...
As opposed to the common sprinkle in the eye metaphor our listeners are well acquainted with.
The Great Northern will be... and the Norwegians, there will be activities that are going to be going around Twin Peaks that are going to have potentially hidden consequences from the viewer. That if people want to dig deeper into, they'll be able to, if you will, from just like small comments to small issues that go on into the background. But I think that if you were to take a picture of Laura Palmer and zoom in into her eye,
as we often do,
that is going to be the story we're going to get from Twin Peaks. So I think that it's going somewhere. But I don't think that it's going to be obvious.
5-star review of episode 1, the pilot. It is going somewhere.
Yes. I feel that these details are going somewhere, but I don't think it'll be immediately obvious for first-time viewing. And I might be completely wrong. We might just go into a Great Norwegian War by episode 4. So.
And isn't it great that feeling is there that anything could happen?
Anything could happen.
I narrowed it down to my last 2, and then we'll wrap this up. So with kind of the genre of Twin Peaks, I think this pilot does a good job showing the darkness, the mystery, the murder mystery angle. Some of the humor is there, although I will say the humor continues. But then also the soap opera part of it. The very much feels like a soap opera angle.
It handles suspense really well.
And what I thought was really interesting was just how much, at least from my viewing, Ed and Norma just feel like the perfect encapsulation of that. Because by the time you get to the reveal that Ed is on the phone with Norma, you already know that like Laura was in a relationship with Bobby and James at the same time, presumably. We have indications of people like Benjamin, not necessarily flirting, but trying to get into the inner circle of Josie because he's after her lumberyard.
Yes.
And then you have Cooper's weird, like, who's the babe, talking about Josie. And just generally atmosphere is like, there's some relationship drama. There's the Bobby Shelley as well as the Bobby Laura. So by the time we get to Ed, it's like confirmation that, everyone in this town is probably having an affair right this moment.
Probably.
And then that gets further increased by finding out James with Donna. And then the last thing we get is Truman with Josie. So at this point, there's how many affairs or cheating happening?
I mean, by all means, whether or not it's a scandal or if it's just a professional conspiracy working relationship, we do have a connection with the redheaded mill worker along with Benjamin Horn. What's her name?
Catherine.
With Catherine and Benjamin Horn. So I don't know if anything's going to grow from that.
Do you think that all these affairs contribute to the show? Do you feel like they add to a sense of realism? This is what real life is like?
No, I think that instead it adds to the sense of everyone has their dirty laundry, everyone has their secrets, and maybe they'll be unraveled later, maybe they won't be, but I feel that it's just setting up a darker tone for as the series goes on.
Do you believe the laundromat of Twin Peaks will clean their dirty laundry?
No.
Ooh.
I think that Twin Peaks is not going to end well.
Ooh, bold statement. And my last thing I wanted to talk about, I really, really like the way that the death of Laura Palmer is revealed to Sarah and Leland. One of my favorite moments from the pilot, I would say, is when Leland is on the phone with his wife. The cop car pulls out through the window. Very convenient timing. And as that's going on, you hear Sarah screaming because Leland's no longer responding to her. He's talking to the officer. And then we get this long shot of the camera panning down the phone wire, telephone cord, and to the phone. And then it lingers on that phone and then just hard cuts to Sarah Palmer giving this beautiful scream. And just the contortions on her face, wringing her hair, and just the way that is delivered in such a hard, I think, satisfying manner. Because we don't get a lot of Leland and Sarah as the parents, despite it being the murder of their child. But I think what we are given really does a good job, maybe even overemphasizing if you're not a fan of the melodrama, but definitely sending home that this was brutal to them in particular.
Absolutely. My favorite portion of that scene was discovering that the lodge has a black phone and the parents have a yellow phone.
You really like phones, don't you?
I'm adamant on these phone connections, but no, I do agree with their overall emotional state has been fun, to say the least. I believe that I did mention earlier in this podcast, but basically the mother is starting to break down and is delightfully horrifying.
Yes.
The father we've seen just a bit more, a bit less. I think he's been in scenes more, but we still see less
he's more subdued. It's hard to overshadow the wife, who's every scene we see her is either drugged out on the couch staring vacantly or is screaming out of the top of her lungs.
Oh yeah, she was screaming like a madwoman. And after a good 5 seconds of her lying back in silence, they're like, okay, it's good to talk to her now.
And on a side note, just speaking of Sarah Palmer and her screaming, I did, when we watched the video, I did pause during the scene near the end of the episode where Sarah Palmer is screaming. And if you are a viewer of Twin Peaks who hasn't done that before, I would highly encourage you to pause the video during the scene of Sarah Palmer screaming at the end and look into the mirror. I didn't give any context, but I did think it's a fun visual moment that a lot of people first time viewing won't see. So there's a chance that maybe you listening haven't seen that. And it's very unsettling. It
is very unsettling, but I'm pretty sure that most people would be unsettled by Klingons, so...
Yes, he is convinced that this is a Klingon. It takes place within the Star Trek universe. If you rearrange the letters in Twin Peaks, you know what it spells? Star Trek.
I'm... Probably in Klingon.
Yeah.
But...
so that wraps up my points. What was your overall thoughts on the pilot and your attitude toward Twin Peaks moving forward?
I hated it.
Oh, no. That's so glad to hear, Professor, because you're locked into this podcast now.
No, I You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. No, I really enjoyed it. I enjoy the sense of suspense we are getting. I am excited to see, though I'm not a big fan of Bobby's character, I'm excited to see where he's going to go, just because I feel that he's going down a definitely interesting road. I want to see more of Dale Cooper, see if my conspiracy theory on him kind of pulling the strings on some of these matters. But beyond that, no, I'm super excited for the series.
Cool. So thank you very much for giving this first pilot episode of our Logcast a try on the pilot episode of Twin Peaks. We are going to be uploading these about maybe once a week or so. And again, if you have not seen Twin Peaks before, we encourage you to watch the show along with us. Before we send off, I would like to kind of make it a regular occurrence on this podcast, since it is the central mystery, and you do not know the answer for sure. Professor, who do you believe killed Laura Palmer?
I'm pretty sure I'm leaning on Dale Cooper.
Okay.
Or someone affiliated with Dale Cooper. Maybe it's Diane.
Okay, could be Diane, could be Albert, could be Sam.
Diane, it may be Diane may not be doing the dying, but she's sure as hell doing the killing.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for listening. If you are finding this podcast on something you can comment on, go ahead and leave a comment over what color your phone is. Otherwise, take care and have a fantastic, wonderful, and strange evening.